My name's Oliver and I'm a specialist here at Baldwin's. I'm joined today with my colleague Dominic, and we're going to talk today about the relationship between coins and alcohol. An interesting topic.
It is, and it's a completely random one. We were having a couple of drinks the other night and we thought, wouldn't it be interesting to look a bit more at the connection between coins and drinks? And we'll see from this video that there is a deep connection between the two. We've got some Greek coins, we've got some Roman coins, we've even got a Celtic coin, and a few more recent bits and pieces just to examine today.
So, what are these strange looking silver coins on these enormous flans?
These are silver cistophori from Pergamon. That was a kingdom in Asia Minor. And what you'll notice is they're a bit odd because they don't have a portrait. But what can you see on the back of there?
They look like bunches of grapes.
Yeah, that's exactly what they are. So these two coins represent the cult of Dionysus. So the kings of Pergamon wanted to be related to, they wanted to show their descendancy from the god Dionysus, who was the god of
wine.
And he was one of the most important gods of the Greek pantheon. And as we can see, we've got a wreath made of grapes and vine leaves, showing the connection to wine and Dionysus. And in the middle, a kista mystica, or a mystic box with a snake coming out. And this just shows the link between Greek rulers and Dionysus, who was the god of wine. And Bacchus was the Roman equivalent, and we see Bacchus on all sorts of Roman coins, celebrating good times. All right, the next coins we've got are some coins of the Emperor Probus. Now, this is a tenuous link at best, but these are a base metal Antoniniani, or radiates from the 3rd century AD. Probus is one of the few emperors we can find that has a direct link to winemaking. So these coins were minted at the time of the crisis of the 3rd century. This is a period in Roman history where we have something like 40 different Roman emperors in 50 years. And Probus had a relatively long reign for one of those emperors. But he's linked to wine production. He realized that if he let his soldiers sit around doing nothing all the time, they were more likely to rebel and to nominate a rival emperor. So he set them to work across Western Europe planting vineyards. And his soldiers were not only given something to do, but they also rejuvenated the economies of these devastated parts of Europe.
So we have Probus to thank for some of the best wine regions across Europe.
I suppose that depends how much you like wine. But some of the vineyards in France do attempt to trace their ancestry back to the time of Probus. It sounds crazy, but it's true.
So we have what I can tell immediately is a Celtic coin.
Right.
The horse is a bit of a giveaway, but what I can't tell, what isn't obvious, is the connection to alcohol.
Yeah, well, we've got a massive vine leaf on the obverse. We can tell it's the obverse because it's slightly convex, whereas the reverse is slightly concave. But can you tell the language that's on the coin? There are some letters. We know, of course, that the Celts didn't have written language, so it might be unusual to see it on a coin.
There's a C, an N, an O by the looks of it. Probably Latin, I suspect.
It is Latin. And that's because King Verica wanted to show his close ties with the Romans. So this was minted by an Iron Age British king, but it has something very Roman, and that's wine. And that's to show that Verica's part of England was importing lots of expensive Roman wine, and they were basically living the high life.
Now, 17th century tokens,
yeah,
in different conditions. Why are some of them so bright and some of them so dull?
Well, that's interesting. You can usually tell exactly where these were found by the colour. Firstly, we're talking about these 17th century tokens because they were produced by commercial premises across Britain during the 17th century. And a lot of those were, of course, pubs and also drinks makers, so gin distilleries, whiskey makers, all sorts of things. But the reason they're so bright and look like gold is because they were found in the Thames. And we call it Thames gilding. And it's because you have the mud of the Thames that stops the air getting to the bronze coins, or brass in this case. So they end up this very bright colour. They're almost pretty much the same colour as they would have been when they were made. So they haven't had 300 years worth of tarnishing. And we've got all sorts of different examples here from different pubs across the city. We tried to find one from the Strand, but we couldn't, unfortunately, but they do exist. So we had a bit of a chat when we put this tray together, but I don't remember a shilling of King George III being in there. Well, why is it there?
Well, you may have heard, it's a bit of an antiquated phrase now, but taking the king's shilling or taking the queen's shilling.
Yeah, from the Napoleonic Wars.
Exactly, which refers to when somebody signs up to join the army or the navy, and they receive a shilling, which back in the day was rather a lot of money.
Yeah, surely.
However, there was a bit of a rogue element to this, and people were often press-ganged into joining the army and navy against their will. One popular legend is that a recruiter from the army or navy would slip their coin in somebody's drink in their tankard to force them into joining the armed forces.
So I've just been press-ganged.
You have.
Thanks, Oliver. Thank you so much.
And this is a popular belief, is that this is why many tankards have glass bottoms to them, so that the drinker can check to see that they aren't about to...
Is that complete nonsense? Because I heard that they had glass bottoms so that someone who was drinking could see whether someone was going to try and punch them in the face.
This is...
It sounds like a bit of an old wives' tale, if you ask me.
This is something of an old wives' tale.
Right.
But I like to think this is how we get the modern drinking game of pennying.
What is pennying? Wait, is that thing you do in university when you put a coin in someone's drink and they have to down it?
Exactly.
Brilliant. Really, really classy. So moving on, we got two more tokens. I think these are fairly obvious. Do you know any more about them?
These are pub checks.
Right.
They're very, very common. Date from the 19th century. Back in the day, there were lots and lots of different pubs, and many of them issued their own tokens, known now as pub checks.
So they're a bit like the 17th century tokens?
Yeah, but a little bit more recent. So they were often issued in brass, most of the time, often round. Sometimes we have slightly more funky shapes, these hexagonal ones. But they were issued mainly by pubs as a sort of a form of advertising and almost a loyalty scheme. Because these were only redeemable at the pubs that issued them, it encouraged people to come back time and time again. I'm sure they did. Fortunately, we don't have any from any of the pubs near here, but there were certainly plenty issued in and around the Strand and the Westminster area.
I see. Evesham's Wine and Spirit Stores, Castle Road, Scarborough. Nice. Now, I thought we were talking about coins and tokens. Why do we have this medal? I mean, to me, that looks military, but then I know very little about medals. But it is quite attractive. What is it?
The vintners shared a special rite that still exists today relating to swans, interestingly.
That's completely random.
I know, the practice of swan upping, which is where a lot of swans in London were rounded up and ringed with tags and then released again in a special ceremony.
Do they still do that?
They still do that. They had a brief break for COVID, but it's still an ongoing practice, and it was shared with the vintners and the Dyers Guild, which is a public display of just how powerful this guild was, the winemakers.
Oh, I see. So these are literally barrels of wine.
Barrels of wine.
Fantastic. And I can even see the hallmarks in there. Cool. Oh, that's really interesting. So moving on to our final two pieces. These take us right up to pretty much the present day. And I find them a little bit unusual. Firstly, we've got this 1983 specimen set. Now, what's special about the 1983 set? I mean, I'm not a modern coin specialist, and even I know this.
1983 new pence, perhaps our most asked question by members of the public.
Indeed. So in this set, you could acquire the fabled, extremely rare 1983 new pence coin. It was a 2-pence piece that instead of saying 2 pence, it said new pence. And that's the only example of one of those, and it came in this set. It was a mistake. And we can see inside the set, it's a standard specimen set with the various coins that were in circulation at the time, and lots of bits and pieces about how the Royal Mint mints coins. But if we open it up to the second bit, this is where I found something that I didn't know about until quite recently. This set was presented by Martini, the drinks company. Very unusual. Why would a drinks company have released something made by the Royal Mint?
An Italian drinks company, one of the most famous British and historic British companies.
It's very unusual. But anyway, that's the Martini set. They also made a set in the same year presented by which company? Not an alcohol company. Heinz ketchup released a set. And as opposed to this, where we have a picture of the Tower of London, you've got a massive Heinz soup can label, which is actually pretty cool. And finally, this I think is the most overt piece of alcohol branding on a Royal Mint coin. This is the Guinness Bill of Rights set.
Something much more overt here. I'm seeing big Guinness branding. I don't know what the relation to coins is.
Neither do I. I mean, I've looked all over this. This is the commemorative for the Bill of Rights, so I'm not sure what connection it really has to Ireland. My early modern British history isn't the best, but we've got lots of imagery, lots of depictions of the Bill of Rights, and of course the £2 coin commemorating that.
So I think that concludes our little chat about the relationship between coins and alcohol that spans centuries of history. I hope you found it very interesting, and I think it might be time to go to the pub.
I agree. No, I think...